everybody. Welcome back. This is the 17th House Take on Sports. I know it's been a while since we did the last one, and I apologize about that. I've been working on getting all my stuff set up for my new podcast. For those of you that don't know, I'll be doing a podcast with the same name, House Take on Sports Podcast. It'll be more frequently, and it's probably going to be available on iTunes and a couple of other sources and outlets that do podcast hosting. So please be able to look out for that, and I'd appreciate it if you share it. And also, as you're watching this, please share this as well. This week we're going to cover baseball players that have done performance-enhancing drugs. Do they belong in the Hall of Fame? College football starting back this weekend. The Seattle Mount Rushmore of Sports, our Player of the Week, and finally our Mascot of the Week. So we start by talking about baseball players that have done performance-enhancing drugs. We all know the names: Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, Rafael Palmeiro, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Alex Rodriguez. Do these guys belong in the Hall of Fame? We know their numbers. We know the stories. We know championships have been won. We know awards have been won. Multiple awards. Barry Bonds, 7-time MVP. Do these guys belong in the Hall of Fame? How many of these guys have come clean and said they've done something? I know one of the names that I just mentioned has, and that's Alex Rodriguez. Now, it did a little prodding, but he has come clean, and for all we know, he's been clean since then. I think Alex Rodriguez was a Hall of Fame caliber baseball player prior to, and maybe during the time he was doing those steroids. And I think he's still going to be, he's on the back end of his career right now, but I think he'll still be chosen as a guy that even if he weren't using performance-enhancing drugs, steroids, if you will, that he would be a Hall of Fame player. The other guys, Barry Bonds would have likely been a Hall of Fame player, but I think his denial and steadfast denial and the way he's carried himself about this, Roger Clemens as well, that's going to keep them short. Rafael Palmeiro was a guy that he didn't have enough clout to begin with, and he got guys like Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire that were just purely or primarily home run hitters. They probably will not get into the Hall. You want to talk about steroids now? Ryan Braun last year kind of got by in a technicality. He got caught, but because his urinalysis results was mishandled, he got it tossed. And now everybody, I think, forgets about it, but you shouldn't, because this guy is crooked. Okay, I'm sorry, there's no other way about it. And this year, you have multiple players that have been suspended. Melky Cabrera being the biggest one, hitting .346 for the Giants this year, one of the best players in baseball. Just 2 years ago, he played for the Braves, hitting .260. Now, as a Braves fan, I was quite upset about that, because I felt like he loafed and he didn't give it his all. He told everybody he kind of re-energized himself recently. Well, no kidding, he re-energized himself. And I can tell you this, going back to the Alex Rodriguez thing, he's been working out at Alex Rodriguez's house in the offseason, so that doesn't look good. But that's my idea on those baseball players. They do not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Lance Armstrong, you got what you deserved here recently. I'm sorry, you seem like a good guy outside of lying about doing what you were doing for so many years, and they finally caught up to you. Next, college football starting this weekend. You have a lot of questions about who people think the number one team should be right now going into this season. A lot of people had LSU number one prior to the Honey Badger, Teron Matthew, getting suspended and getting kicked out of school, basically. Well, not kicked out of school, but kicked off the football team, at least for this season. Now, how big of an impact is he on a corner aspect and on defense? Probably not as big as you would think, but he's a big impact player in the return game. So you take away maybe 1 or 2 explosive plays per week from that special teams, and guess what? LSU is not a number one team. They're probably number 2, number 3 team, and that's where they are right now. So the question becomes, who's number 1? Alabama, Michigan. Alabama had a retooled defensive line and linebacker core, and for all intents and purposes, you have a couple of cornerbacks too in the NFL: Drake Patrick, the linebackers Dante Hightower and Courtney Upshaw. You have Mark Barron as a safety that went to the NFL. I think they'll be okay. Nick Saban likes to reload. He likes to recruit well on the defensive side of the ball, and that's where he coaches. I think Alabama's defense is going to be just as good as it was last year, if not better. USC. USC has skilled players galore, and their defense is much better than I think people give it credit for. I'm not sure if X's and O's Lane Kiffin, is the best X's and O's guy out there. Now for the Pac-10, he probably is one of the better guys out there. And USC didn't hire him because he can't coach. So Matt Barkley, I think, is going to lead that team into a top 2 or 3 finish in the nation. And I think at the end of the year, you're going to see Alabama, LSU, and USC right there. I don't have an opinion on who should be number 1. If you ask me my personal opinion, I would give it to you. But my opinion, just as a take on sports, I won't tell you because I don't have one. Now, this weekend you have 4 big games as I see it. Alabama, Michigan, number 1 versus, or actually number 2 versus number 8. And they're playing the big house in Dallas. Or not the big house, but Jerry Jones' big house. Next up, Notre Dame and Navy, which Notre Dame's going to have that slight edge and fanfare in Ireland because of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They play at 9 o'clock Saturday morning. You have Auburn, Clemson. That's a big ACC-SEC showdown this weekend. Clemson being a top 15 team preseason, and honestly, they don't ever live up to it. So here's hoping Clemson does it this year. I'm not a big fan either way. And last, Boise State, Michigan State. Michigan State coming off a good season, didn't finish out good last year. Or actually, I take that back. They did finish out good last year. Boise State, not so much. Boise State lost Kellen Moore and Doug Martin. Can they replace the quarterback and the running back? That's the big question. Next are Seattle, Mount Rushmore of Sports. Seattle doesn't have, they don't have the illustrious history of baseball, basketball, and football and hockey franchises. You know, they didn't even have an NHL team. What they did have was the Sonics, the Seahawks, and the Mariners. Supersonics are now the Oklahoma City Thunder, for those of you who don't know. So I found 4 guys. I wouldn't say it was hard to put them on here, but I wish I could have found a better variety, okay? But with that, number 1, Ken Griffey Jr. He played 11 years in Seattle. Everybody knows he's probably the best Mariner of all time. 417 homers, a 10-time All-Star, 10-time Gold Glover. He was Rookie of the Year his first year. By the time he had his 4th, 5th year, he was already an MVP. So that guy back there, number 1 in the mountain. Number 2, Ichiro Suzuki, who was just traded to the Yankees, if I'm not mistaken, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, because he wanted to help the team. He loved that franchise. He'd also been there 11 years. Like Griffey Jr., he was a 10-time All-Star, 10-time Gold Glover, but his first year in the big leagues, he won the Rookie of the Year and an MVP award. And he has 2,533 hits all time. A few more years, he might be hitting that 3,000 milestone. Now he's on the backside of his career, so unless he finds a fountain of youth, he may be out of the big leagues in the next couple of years. Next up, Sean Alexander. Sean Alexander is another guy whose injuries took a toll on him quickly towards the end of his career. He was a 3-time Pro Bowler with the Seattle Seahawks as a running back. In 2005, he actually rushed for 27 touchdowns, which at the time was an NFL record. It was MVP that year. He has just under 10,000 yards rushing for his career, which is good, if I'm not mistaken, around 27th, 28th all time, which is pretty good for a guy whose career was cut short by injuries. And last on that, Gary Payton, nicknamed the Glove. And the reason he was nicknamed the Glove is because he was defensively, he would not let you go. He was nonstop on you. He was Defensive Player of the Year in Seattle. He's a 7-time All-Star. In NBA history, he's 8th all-time in assists and 4th all-time in steals. So Gary Payton, the last person on that mountain. Our Player of the Week this week, and this team needs him, the Texas Rangers 3rd baseman Adrian Beltre. This week he went 13 for 27, 13 hits and 27 at-bats. 6 of those 13 hits being home runs, and he drove in 13 runs. That's a 481 average. Don't break out your calculators. 481, and his team went 6-1. So it's safe to say that guy made a big impact, and they're going to need it when against the Angels down the stretch. The Angels are loaded with bats. If you haven't checked, I know a lot of people thought early on Albert Pujols was gone. He fell off. Guess what? Look at his numbers. He's back. Mike Trout, the rookie, probably the best rookie in baseball in the last 30 to 40 years, easily. Leading the league in hits, leading the league in runs scored, leading the league in stolen bases. Their big home run hitter, Mike Trumbo. You got to watch the Angels. That's all I got to say. And I kind of got away from that Player of the Week. But Adrian Beltre, 3rd baseman for the Texas Rangers, Player of the Week. And last but certainly not least, our mascot of the week, the Banana Slugs. The University of California, Santa Cruz Banana Slugs. And this was not real difficult. I wanted a mascot that closely resembled what it actually is supposed to be. And then look up, Google a banana slug online, you'll find out that the banana slug's mascot is pretty closely resembling a true banana slug. And the only reason I say closely is because a lot of these mascots, college mascots, minor league baseball mascots, when they're animals, when they're insects and reptiles, things like that, they tend to look a little goofier than they should and probably not look as closely to the actual name of that mascot, is what they're calling themselves. So this week, our mascot of the week, the UC Santa Cruz Banana Slugs. So that's it for this week. That's it for this show. I really do appreciate you watching. I would appreciate it even more if you shared, if you told people about it, and got people interested in this and also the podcast that's coming up. Like I'm not sure if it's going to be next weekend or the weekend after that. I've got a couple of sites that I'm already looking at hosting it. The big one would be iTunes. Hopefully we can get it on iTunes quicker than we can the other sites, or I should say as quickly as the other sites. I've already got a couple that I'm going to have hosting it, but hopefully iTunes will get on there. You'll notice two big differences. The audio, obviously, because right now I'm doing this in my garage. When we get the the podcast online, I'll be talking into a microphone right in front of me. You won't hear any background, you won't hear static. It'll be pretty clear. It'll be good audio. Secondly, if we do the show, if we do my next show, my House Take on Sports, that pardon me, that I have on YouTube, we'll do that from the new studio, which is actually being set up right now. So for those of you non-Alabama fans, you won't have to see this fathead behind me anymore. And for the Alabama fans, I'm sorry, you won't be able to see this fathead behind me anymore. I do want to keep this on the level. I don't want anybody to think I have preference to anything. This is just something I wanted to make sure there's something behind us when we're doing this show. So I definitely appreciate you watching, and hopefully you'll watch us next time, and hopefully you'll listen to the podcast. Like I said, please share, leave me comments, leave me feedback. I really appreciate it, and thank you. Bye.